Da-na-na-na. They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, they're my ghost stories. Everybody loves a good ghost story. We gather around campfires to hear them, and a lot of us enjoy spooky season for all of those brand new spooky, scary movies that come out. But I have got some real life stories that I have lived through, 3 of them in fact, of my scariest, spookiest ghost stories. So come with me while I share them with you right now. There is a theory that we are all born with the innate ability to sense energy and see things. Now, when I'm saying about seeing things, seeing different energies or planes or levels of existence or universes, however you want to frame that. Sometimes you'll hear about people's children staring at a wall or a blank space, laughing or having a conversation with someone who's not there, or a dog or a cat that's spooked easily or is barking at something that's not there. These are all examples of what I'm talking about. As you get older, however, sometimes those receptors to energy get shut down. But if you are training in energy work, or you're training in the craft, or you're doing any kind of psychic development, those receptors can open back up again, and you can get to experience some very interesting things, especially if you're not protecting yourself. But sometimes you are protecting yourself and they just come out of the blue. My first story actually takes place in the apartment that I'm living in right now, when my son was about 3 years old. Now, he has always been really susceptible to energy. I've known this. I mean, he has me as a mother, so there was little hope there for the kid not to be energetically aware. I always was asked to come into the bathroom with him, and I couldn't quite understand why he needed me every time we went into the bathroom to brush his teeth, to go to the bathroom, he didn't like me leaving him in there when he'd had a shower. And I asked him one day, I said, Dom, why do you not like being in the bathroom by yourself? And he looked at me and said, well, there's a lady in there. And I was like, oh, okay, where's the lady? And he says, she's up high, and pointed to the corner, which is where our bath and shower is. And he pointed up to the top of it. And I said, okay, well, is the lady friendly? Is she saying anything to you? Is she scaring you? Is there anything you can tell me about this lady? And he just said, no, lady's just there, but she scares me. She doesn't say anything, but she just scares me. And I said, okay, well, would you like me to ask the lady to leave? And he said, yes. So I had a nice little conversation with the lady and said, look, you're scaring my kid. I realize you were probably here before us, but if you could maybe not make yourself be able to be seen by him, that would be so great. Like having a nice conversation with a neighbor who's partying too hard, but it's a ghost. And so I said to him, just let me know if she comes back. Now, apparently she hasn't come back. So I was talking to my neighbor the next day, who lives upstairs and across the hall. And she said to me, oh, that must have been Harry's wife. And I was like, say what? And she's like, oh yeah, Harry's wife died in the bathtub. And that is exactly the apartment above us, exactly where he pointed to. So my son was talking to one of the older couples. Unfortunately, his wife passed away, and she was apparently hanging around the apartment still. So that was ghost story number 1. I had no idea that she had passed away in that bathtub until I spoke to my neighbor. So there we go. If anyone wants a ghost detector, you can borrow my kid. No, I joke, you can't. But children, you should listen to them more. And if a kid doesn't want to go into a room, like a younger child, even an older kid, like up until the ages of 11, I would be like, okay, I'd go in there and check it out, because they're a pretty good indicator if there's something going on. If you want more spooky stories, modern witchcraft ideas, and tarot tutorials, hit that subscribe button and make sure you like this video. It helps me out a ton. Story number 2, the Freemantle jail. This is a very famous jail. It's no longer in use. It was a maximum security jail in Freemantle, Western Australia. I had been there a couple of times and have done the tours there. They have night tours, which is more of their haunted ghost tours, and their day tours, and I've done both. So I was 23 at the time, and I was with the father of my child. He came with me on that tour, and we did the night tour, we did the haunted tour, and I was like, I've done this before, no worries, no sweat. I know where the jumps are and what happens and all that kind of jazz. Now, Freemantle Jail was a maximum security prison and they did perform executions there. So there's a lot of ghost stories, and even like ghost stories in the guard houses. You know, people who said they don't even believe in ghosts have quit out of fear. So there's a lot of rich ghost history. It's a very haunted place. The last execution was in fact in the 90s. So it was, you know, quite active on the spooky side. We were doing the tour and we get to actually go into two places which are not exactly the nicest places to be if you're sensitive to energy. The first one is the holding cell for all the prisoners that get held there 24 hours before they're going to be executed. They get last rites, they get their meal, and it is honestly the most dank, disgusting place you've ever been. It's like on top of a roof of a cell block. There's just like 8 cells and they're all packed in together in one. It's a rectangle building and there's like one hallway. And I walked in there with everyone and the tour guide is talking, and all I'm hearing is just screaming in my head. It's not just like one voice, it's so many voices, different pitches, different volumes, different thoughts, different feelings. And it was just, I had to get out of there. I could only stay in there for a few seconds. I was just like, okay, I've got to leave, because this was a very oppressed, very depressed kind of area. So I walked out of there, I got some air and I was like, okay, well that wasn't pleasant. Remind me never to go in there again. And then we moved into the hanging room. Again, I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a go. And you have to kind of go with the tour, you know what I mean? Like they take you through buildings. So we got split up in the hanging room. And there's one side, which is the viewing area for people who wanted to come and view the hanging. I know that's a bit macabre, and then the area where the person gets hung. And so we were split and my group was on the viewing area. And the door gets shut behind us. We're talking, there's about 6 of us there. And all of a sudden, every single person on our side of the room feels this ice cold chill go right up the back of their bodies. There is nowhere for that to be found, like nowhere for that gust to come in. Everything is shut. And we turned around and Joel, who's the father of my son's child, turned around and took a photo, and we had it developed afterwards, and there were all of these massive orbies, and it was crazy because we were like teenagers there who were like, no, we felt it too. One guy jumped out of a chair he was sitting in because it freaked him out so much. So that was my ghost stories, like 2 of the most extreme experiences. I mean, everything was pretty haunted. The laundry room was pretty gross. The chapel didn't feel very nice. It was but you know, if you're a ghost hunter and you're ever in Fremantle, I completely recommend that you go on the Fremantle Jail tour. The third story is probably the most intense psychic attack I've ever had in my life. I was very young, I was maybe 21. I was living with my boyfriend at the time. This is in Perth, Western Australia, in the city. And I was asleep and got woken up and was completely paralyzed. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. I could breathe and see. That's all that was happening. And so I was flat on my back, breathing and looking at the ceiling. And then I felt this intense pressure on my chest, like someone was sitting on my chest and pushing down. At first I was desperately trying to just get my hands to move so I could like hit my boyfriend at the time awake, like just, you know, not meanly, but just like tap him awake. But nothing was happening and I still couldn't speak either to try and do anything. And so this pressure kept on being pushed on my chest. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and push it off. So I called in my energy as much as I could and I was like, go away. And I like saw myself pushing that and felt myself pushing that energy away, and it didn't work. So I tried again a second time, all the while feeling completely terrified. And I pushed the energy away and I was like, you know, get off me. And that didn't work. And so I pulled in my energy again, and at this point I'm beginning to panic because I still can't move, I still can't speak, so I'm only doing this verbally in my head. I can't do anything, and so I build as much as I possibly can and was quite unhappy at this point, and I just said, fuck off! And I apparently sat bolt right up in bed, so that worked, thank God. And Matt woke up and was like, are you okay? And I just said, oh my God, that was so horrible. fell back on my back and went straight to sleep. And I remember it in the morning, but he was like, that was a little bit terrifying. I'm like, yeah, you weren't me, buddy. Like, so like, I know a lot of people will say, okay, well, maybe that's sleep paralysis, you know, it could have been anything, but the feeling of the pressure on my chest, and it was not a panic attack because it was in the middle of the night. And I've also found that a lot of times now, after years and years and years of doing magic and energy work and sensing spirit and all that sort of stuff, that a lot of things, like you're at your most susceptible to seeing things at night, or at least me, in that in-between space. You know, that in-between space of like, just as you're waking up, just as you're kind of coming back into your body, that's the time I found that I've always been like super aware, and when I used to always see things as a kid. So it was in that same space that this thing managed to kind of get in there. I still don't really know this day what it was, but I got rid of it and I cleansed the entire apartment that day. But yeah, that was pretty spooky too. I would love to know if anybody else has had that experience or something similar to that, because yeah, that was quite intense and very unpleasant. Ooh. If you want to check out how I became a witch, go check out this video, and I'll see all you spooky bumblebees next time. Da-na-na-na. 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 Na-na-na-na. Na-na-na-na. Da-da-da-da-da-da.